Private Lender Podcast, Episode 20.
The Private Lender Podcast quote of the day comes to us from Jim Rohn, who said, "Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune."
This is the Private Lender Podcast, the show that shares practical advice and know-how for new and seasoned lenders, from private mortgages on single-family houses to joint ventures on commercial projects and beyond. Discover details about investment vehicles that you won't find at your local bank or online broker. Listen and learn from private lenders and real estate investors, as well as from professionals and entrepreneurs, as they share the details, strategies, and the insight that allows for successful and prosperous lending. Now, get ready to increase your ROI. Here's your host, Keith Baker.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Private Lender Podcast. I'm Keith Baker. I'm your host today. I'll be taking care of you. If I can get you some waters or some bread, just let me know to get things started. This is episode 20. One more, and this podcast is legal to drink. So very excited about that. And I want to thank you for sharing your time with me today, because after all, time is our most precious commodity, our most precious asset. And I do appreciate you listening. So let's get into a couple of house cleaning items right now. First off, the private lending class that I was going to teach at the Rich Club at the end of May has been pushed back until the end of June. So we've had some scheduling conflicts arise, and I'm going to push it back a month. So go to privatelenderpodcast.com and richclub.org, and you'll find the new dates. We're going to settle that here, finalize it in the next day or two, and then post those to the website. So if you were planning to go to the Rich Club on May 31st, please do not. Well, not for that class. You can go, but not for the class that I was going to teach on Introduction to Private Money Lending. So if you go to the Rich Club on the 31st of May, I will not be there, but feel free to go and get whatever education you can while you're there, because that's why that club, the community exists. Networking and education, which are two very, very vital components to investing. So on today's episode, I interview Brant Phillips. Brant is a self-made man. He's going to tell you about it, how he kind of started one career path, and now has ended up as a real estate investor, as a coach, an entrepreneur and businessman, and just all around one of the better people, I think, in the real estate investing realm in the industry. He's just a good guy, and I'm honored to have him on today. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and thank our sponsors. The Private Lender Podcast is proudly sponsored by the following. The Realty Investment Community of Houston, or Rich Club, is the premier real estate association in Southeast Texas. The Rich Club provides its members with the education, resources, leads, and networking they need to earn more wealth with their real estate investments. The Rich Club has helped thousands of real estate investors realize their full potential, and they are ready to help you. Visit their website at richclub.org for more details. That's richclub.org. 713 Houston Area Real Estate Networking with Landon Rothstein and Ray Sasser. Come out and experience one of the fastest growing meetups of real estate investors. Visit privatelenderpodcast.com/sponsors for more information regarding 713 Houston Area Real Estate Networking Meetup. And now, back to the show. All right, we're back, and I just want to say I really do appreciate the sponsorship from Rich Club and from the 713 Meetup with Landon and Ray. It does help out a lot and keeps the podcast moving. And to that end, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to please, if you haven't yet, and you can hear my voice, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and review. Even if you have an Android, please go to iTunes, leave a review, because the more reviews I get, whether they're good or bad, it doesn't matter. If you hate it, that's fine too. I'd personally rather you email me to let me know how I can improve. But please do go to iTunes, leave a review, because the more reviews I get, the more exposure I'll get, the bigger the tribe of lenders, and the more people we can educate on alternative investments and ultimately build a community across this great land of ours that doesn't require banks for real estate and real estate investing. That way, it's a community. It's more local. It's more grassroots. And it really is a tribe that we can do local. We're starting here in Houston, but I want it to branch out all over the country. I know there are people who have no problem lending in other states, and the goal is of this podcast is to get the reach out there, to get the education out there, to enable all this to happen. If you've been on Facebook and you follow Mitch Stephen, who I believe was on episode 6, he is Mr. Owner Finance and another just great guy. But he has been in Washington trying to push forward the owner financing agenda with lobbyists and various representatives. Now, I normally don't like to get political, and I really don't like lobbyists, but I think in this case, when owner financing and private lending serve so many people, it gives chances to people who aren't quote unquote mortgageable, and it helps people have that piece of a dream of owning their home. And when banks won't do it, but private individuals will, I think it's only win-win. And Mitch is certainly fighting the good fight. And you can go to the texas100.org, or also you can go to the privatelenderpodcast.com and look at the resources and sponsors. Even though they're not a sponsor, I do advertise freely for Mitch and his organization, so that we can get some of the more restrictive laws off the books, and certainly want to keep the regulation there to protect the consumer against predatory lending. Don't get me wrong. I am an investor, but you have to have a heart as well. And anyone who does practice predatory lending should be punished. So let me get that. Just want to get that out there. But Mitch is doing a good job. So please, if you can, donate, help, and push that forward. So speaking of another good guy, let's go ahead and get into the interview with Brant Phillips. With us today is Brant Phillips, a full-time real estate investor, a business owner, business coach, speaker, and best-selling author. He's been featured on Fox News as a real estate expert and hosts local seminars and training events. In addition to Brant's real estate pursuits, he's an active entrepreneur I screwed that up. Excuse me. In addition to yeah. So, in addition to Brant's real estate pursuits, he's an active entrepreneur as owner of a coaching and consulting business, a property management company, and also owns a marketing company that helps small business and entrepreneurs to utilize the same strategies he uses in his businesses. One of his companies, Invest Home Pro, was recognized by Inc. 5000 as one of America's fastest growing private companies. Brant, welcome to the Private Lender Podcast.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm proud to be here. Glad to be here.
I'm honored to have you, and I joke around. I say I only bring on slackers, and underachievers. So that was you've done good for yourself, sir. I know you're from around the Houston area, and again, I'm honored to have you on.
Thanks, man. I'm looking forward to it.
So, a lot of people kind of give us a quick little background. Not so much the origin story, but 30,000 foot view of how you started in real estate, how you got to where you are today, and just to let people know, you are one of the best coaches out there at teaching people not only how to invest, but also about private lending. So I'd like to kind of walk us through that, if you could, please.
Yeah. So I started, bought my first house in 2007, and my kind of, little short story and kind of claim to fame, kind of people who know me, is that my wife and I were living in an apartment. We didn't have any money because we had just finished off paying student loans and credit cards and all this kind of stuff. And I was working at a corporate job that I really disliked, to put it politely. And I decided I wanted to be a real estate investor. So I got some training, read some books, got some education. And I used that credit card to purchase my first home, essentially use it for I got cash from the credit card, used as a down payment to buy my first home, and went on to buy 10 houses that my first year in 2010. People today hear that and they're like, well, that's incredible. I'm like, yeah, it really wasn't that impressive. 2007, anybody could buy a house. So I was able to use my good credit and buy 10 homes, 10 investment properties while still working my job. Well, then 2008 came, and I had maxed out the loans the banks would give me. So 2008, 2009 is where I really had to roll up my sleeves and kind of cut my teeth as a real estate investor, where a lot of, other real estate investors were just going out of business because of lack of financing. we were surrounded by deals. It was so easy to get deals then, but it was hard to get financing because you couldn't get it from banks anymore. And everyone was afraid of real estate. So I began putting together partnerships. I put together 3 partnerships in 2008 to keep buying rental properties. That was my investment strategy then. It is still now, but we flip and do owner financing and things like that. But at the end of 2008, I looked at what I'd done, and I'd bought 10 more houses. So I had 10 or 20 properties. But I was like, well, the partnership thing is good. And I'm, really like my partners and helping them, but I'm having to do twice as much work for half of the, return essentially. So they're 50-50 type partnership deals. So I'm like, that's not going to get me closer to my goals, of quitting my job, creating wealth and things like that as quickly as I wanted to. So early in 2009, I learned about private money. I learned about self-directed IRAs, and I don't know, I had some conversations with people and told them about what we were doing. And we began, I say we, like me, and I had a couple of buddies in the business. So we began raising money so we could keep doing what we love and enjoy, and what had become my full-time business at that point in time. I left corporate America and started working with private lenders in 2009. And here it is, it's 2018. And still work with most of the lenders that I worked with back then in 2009. And we've just continued to raise private money and do deals and work with our investors. And, one thing I remember it was midway through 2009, and I had maybe put together, 5 or 6 deals with private lenders at that point in time. And I still felt myself like being really nervous talking to lenders and just like having a lack of self-confidence, if you will, whenever I was getting on phone calls or going into meetings with private lenders. And one day I had a conversation with one of my partners. It wasn't a lender. They were a partner from 2008. And she called me one day and she said, "Hey, Brant," she's like, I wanted to let you know I was going through my accounts, like my retirement account and the real estate that I bought with you. And she said, "I wanted to let you know that, if I hadn't invested with you, I think I'd be wiped out right now or seriously hurting financially." Because what she did was in 2008, the beginning of 2008, which happened to be great move on her part, she pulled a lot of her money out of the stock market to invest with me in the real estate. And she was very thankful to me, right? Like a lot of gratitude, and it humbled me a lot. But then this light bulb went off, and I'm thinking, this is 2009. So the stock market is still like, it's on fire still, right? And so, and then, and you're hearing every day in the newspapers line about people just getting wiped out and devastated and losing their jobs. And I'm like, man, like I'm viewing this whole thing wrong. I've been going in with this mindset of like borrowing or begging someone, and it's not that. It's like really what we do as real estate investors when we work with private lenders is we have an incredible opportunity, an incredible investment opportunity for them to invest locally. Sometimes you hear it called socially investing. So I'm like, man, I'm buying these houses in our community that's going to hire these contractors and buy materials, and their property secured by the real estate, and they're getting greater returns than they get at the stock market. I'm like, ever since that conversation, my confidence level and just my self-esteem, whatever it is, increased, but also just like a sense of pride, if you will. Like, no, man, like I'm helping people at the same time, and I'm helping my business and my family. So anyways, that was probably a little bit longer you wanted, but that's kind of the foundation of where we're at today came from those few years,
No, that it's fine, and thanks for taking a little longer, because I think it's important that a lot of people see the home and garden TV and flip this, flip that, and people do make it look like it's easy, but excuse me, it is a hustle, it is a job, and if it's done the right way, it is to me, the best win situation out there.
Absolutely.
And so, so no, I do have a couple of just quick follow-up questions. I'm curious because I don't know this, but what did you do in corporate America?
All right. So, well, prior to that,
that's a good start. All right. So
prior to that, I was in law enforcement for 7 years. And that was I had a criminal justice degree. I went to law enforcement and I really enjoyed that. So the last couple of years, I can't do politics. I can't kiss ass and do all the stuff and do unethical stuff. So, the last 2 years I was really battling like, am I going to fight all the stuff that's going on here or not? And I made up my mind, like, I don't want to devote my life to fighting this kind of stuff, meaning like internal politics and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then we had my wife and I had our first child. So I was working like weekends, holidays, night shift, blah, blah, blah. So made up my mind to go to corporate America. Man, it didn't, it felt corporate, that's for sure, but didn't feel like so my father-in-law worked for this company. It was called Ecolab, Fortune 500 company. He didn't give me a job, but he got me an interview. So I went for this interview, and the job title was a territory manager. Basically, it was like a sales job. And the thought of me doing sales, because I'm really a pretty quiet, reserved kind of guy. I never sold anything. And my wife's background was sales. She's like, you can go into sales. And I'm like, that pretty much sounds like the worst thing in the world. But I'm like, you know what? Like, let me just give it a shot. So I go get this job. And so I was a territory manager. I managed accounts. So what did I manage? So I essentially sold dishwashing, detergent, soaps, industrial cleaning chemicals for hospitals in the hospitality hotel industry. And so the funny thing about it was, it depends on who I'm talking to. I'll say, yeah, I had a corporate sales job because that sounds really cool. And I did. But in my corporate sales job, I had a company car, which also had a tool bag and this lab coat that I'd have to slap on and like literally crawl under dish machines if our dispensing equipment wasn't working properly. And so in one setting, I'd be like with the tie on and doing the sales call and taking orders. And 10 minutes later, I may be back in their 100-degree kitchen, sweating my what off and like crawling around under a wet kitchen floor, working on 220-volt electrical wiring. And I knew very little about electricity. So anyways, that was my sales job. So that was, man, it sucked at the time, but I'm so grateful for it because I remember I came home from the very first day and I've got, like I'm a pretty, kind of wild spirit for the most part, but I tame it in, I guess, if you will, leash it up, which a lot of people do, which I don't think is a good thing. But I come home the very first day from my job and my wife's like, happy because I have like this 9-to-5 kind of thing and I'm no longer a police officer. And she's like, babe, how was it? How was your first day on the job? And I remember I'm like telling her I absolutely hate it. I was like, it is not for me. I'm not going to stay here long, but don't worry. I'm going to stay here as long as I need to. I'm going to pay the bills and do what we need to do, but I'm going to find something else. So, I always performed. It was sales, like I finished number 1 or number 2 every year, but I really used that time to motivate me and started researching and reading about real estate, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but it took me several years. I was conservative the way I did it, went about it, but that was my corporate life.
Okay, I was always wondering what you'd done prior to, because I know you've been doing real estate for so long, and that's how I met you and know of you. So interesting. So great background. I definitely hear, from law enforcement to crawling around on wet kitchen floors and 220-volt. That can't be fun. So now you quickly find out the power of private money. And let's back up a little bit. You quickly find out the conventional banking game of you've got too many loans out. They're not going to give you any more because they're looking at you first and then the property second, basically. So they look at you as an individual, whereas a private lender, I still look at the individual, but my first question is, what's the property like? You know, like what's it going to be back? Is it a deal? What's going to be done to the property? And what's the process? Is it going to be turned into a rehab or for flip to sale or a rental or an owner finance or whatever the case may be? But credit scores aren't so important as track record. So in your case, you've got a good track record. You've been doing this for years. Someone could feel just off your name fairly confident. They still need to do their due diligence, but if you could still feel fairly confident with you, given your money. And what I like about you as well is when you teach people about private money is how you're upfront and foremost. Like, this is how you stay safe. This is where you can call me on my BS if I have any. And I know you did a webinar recently and you talked about your non-negotiables, non-negotiables are a great title because it's exactly what they are. And you've provided it to the lender already. And so let's just kind of tick off some of those things on the list. And number one, closing at a title company. I always recommend, I know people, you can close out at an attorney's office and you can go get title insurance later, yada, yada, yada. I always tell people close at a title company with title insurance, lender insurance. And if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So, you're saying that I'm a trustworthy guy, my experience, but here's the thing. When we work with a new lender, most of my lenders they're just like friends and family and come to Christmas parties and other stuff. So that's, those relationships are solid, but new people come to us and, hey, I'm checking you out. Sometimes they come in with a statement like, like they trust me. Like, I'm explaining to them the process. I've never worked with these people before. I'm like, well, I read about you. I went online and, I trust you. So I jokingly, because we have to disclose all the risks. So I'm like, hey, I could be the next Bernie Madoff. And so, so they kind of like, what? I'm like, well, I'm not, but I want you to invest with me that way. Meaning like structure it. Like if I'm the next freaking Ponzi scheme going to end up on what's that on A&E, American Greed or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So structure it where I'm that guy, but you're still going to be safe. So that's where all these things come into play that if as a lender, that you need to establish some things that are non-negotiable, that no matter who you're working with, you are secured. Okay. So yeah, first things first is like always close at a title company. I've had lenders offer to send us money. Like, do I just send you money or how, no. And I know lenders who've done that, who've just wired money to an investor. Like, never do that. So to me, this is a really simple one, is that you always, and I say always, close at a title company. Just doing attorney closings at their office and things like that. Yeah, there could be some exceptions if you're just refinancing it, you've got a recent title policy or whatever. But no, just close at a title company. That is non-negotiable. And what we do is we give the lender their own title insurance on each and every deal. And we also have our real estate attorney, we have them draw the docs up in our lender's favor, because there's two ways to draw up docs. So we do that in our lender's favor as well, just for added peace of mind, security for them. People like, why do you do that? Well, one, we've never not performed on any of our loans that I don't plan on doing that. But in the event that if something were to happen to me and we weren't, that's the way I want it done. I still want it to be in my lender's favor, because what I see is, man, these people, I remember when I first started raising money, it was really humbling to me. I remember coming home and telling my wife, like, I've got 2 or 3 other investors. She's like, that's great. And I'm like, it is, but I'm like, it's also a little bit overwhelming. Like, it's like, I got to do whatever I got to do to make sure that these that their investment is secure. I told my wife, we'll sell the cars, we'll sell our house, because this is several years later, to protect them no matter what. And yeah, title company, long question, but title company is non-negotiable.
Excellent. I preach the same thing. And again, one of the reasons to those listening why Brant has a good reputation is that attitude right there. He's going to do whatever he has to do to keep his lenders safe and secure and get their money back, even if it costs him money or if he has to cut his own throat. That way, that lender's going to keep coming back and know, hey, he hit on hard times, but you know what? I got all my money back, and he performed as we agreed, and that's very key. And starting at a title company is non-negotiable. So let's go down a little down, and what are some of your other your other top three here? We got title company. What's the other top two out of those your three non-negotiables?
Well, so from a private lender's perspective, one thing that I would encourage lenders to take to heart is never invest in something you don't understand. So there's a lot of different types of real estate investments that people can make, for sure. But there is a lot of very complex real estate deals that most lenders aren't going to understand, that I don't even understand. So a non-negotiable for lenders is making sure that you understand what it is that you're investing in. And I think that's why, investing in single family homes is so, such a popular investment for people, because it is something that is easy to understand, in terms of, single family rental properties or basic fix and flips is really, it's something that people can understand. So, I encourage them to, if it's something you're interested in investing in, take some time to get educated in that. I'm working on, talked to you a little bit about it before, but I'm working on a book right now the focus is helping private lenders understand single family home investing in notes, like investing with guys like you and myself and investors. It's making sure that they fully understand it, because my investors that understand what we do, it's a better relationship. They understand it, so it's less lag time on our end too, explaining things to them. And typically, it's proven the better that you understand something, the more successful that you're going to be in it, and less susceptible that you are to, some of these horror stories that you hear. So for sure, understand what you're investing in. And this kind of ties into that, but it's another one of the non-negotiables, is you don't lend on a deal if the numbers don't make sense. And, one of the chapters of the book is not only, understand the investment and analyzing potential borrowers, but analyzing the deal. So I've seen a lot of lenders they don't really know the definition of a good deal. So I think it's really important to understand what you're investing in, but to know the numbers and have your non-negotiable, you have a set amount of equity in each deal, right? That could be a minimum of 20% equity, meaning if you're a private lender, that your investment amount for the purchase price and repairs, your loan to value amount's not going to exceed 80%, for example. Typically, it's not even going to exceed 75%, and a lot of times it's 70%. One of my mentors, who does a lot of lending also, I don't borrow from him because we're not in agreement on rates and terms. But he's a 65% guy. That's his non-negotiable. He's I will not loan more than 65% on any deal. He's like, if you want to bring your own money, have skin in the game, or if you want to get a second lien, I'm fine with that. But I'm first lien position, which is another non-negotiable for most lenders. I'm going to loan at 65%, period. There's no negotiating that. And it doesn't work for you. This is what he tells his borrowers. If that doesn't work for you, that's quite okay, because He's in a position where he's like, I don't have to lend my money. And if I do, I'm going to sleep good at night. And if I get a call and I got to take it back, I know I've got plenty of equity. So the reason that's so important, it's so important to have, an adequate amount of equity, because that equity, hopefully it never comes into play that you don't have to take a property back, but the equity is essentially oxygen. Just like for us as small business owners, cash flow, having cash in the bank is like oxygen. Whenever the cash is low in the bank, it's like, oh crap, this is hard to breathe. And when you're having a hard time breathing, you don't always make the best decisions. So as a lender, that equity is going to be oxygen to you and give you space and time to breathe and figure out the best course of that property or that investment, if lo and behold you ever have to take it back. So to me, that's another extremely important non-negotiable.
I'm going to give you fair warning and full disclosure, Brant. I'm stealing equity as oxygen. That's a great tagline.
I probably stole it. I stole the cash as like oxygen from somebody else. So
yeah,
these ideas are all stolen. There's no original ideas these days, my friend. It's like there's no original ideas.
Yeah,
I think Einstein said that too, so I stole that.
Oh, did he? Okay, yeah,
somebody like that said it.
That's great.
It is. It's true. It's like, man, if you loan on a deal because one, you either didn't know your numbers or you trusted some investor, and you loan 100% or even 80% is not even good. There's some cases for it on some rental properties and things like that. But if a private lender doesn't understand their numbers, and let's say they loan at 90%, and they're like, well, there's 10% equity. You and I both know just to sell a house, that's going to cost them 10%. Closing costs, like 10% is like nothing.
Out the door immediately. Yeah, and that's kind of the base, because then there's also holding time. Maybe it doesn't sell right away. Yeah. So, yeah. And it's one thing that the LTV is pivotal. Loan to value is pivotal, because that's, as you said, you alluded to, that's where your protection is. Mm-hmm. And it, I always look at something like you gave a great example of, invest with Brant, like thinking like he's Bernie Madoff. What happens? What's the worst case scenario? So I always start with, okay, if I have to take this house back or whatever I'm loaning on, what is it? Is it a 3-month disposition? Is it 6 month? Where are we in the market cycle? Is it what's there's a lot of factors that go into play. Like you said, if it's a rental property, maybe you can get it over to a landlord quicker than a retail buyer. But if you to me at some point when that loan to value starts creeping up, it stops becoming investing, and now you're just speculating. Yeah. And we saw a lot of that, 10 years ago, where, I'm going to loan at 85% because it just keeps going up in value. And guess what? You hit a market stall, or even a decline, and now you're underwater on a quote unquote investment, when really you've probably been better off putting it on the craps table. Well, maybe that's a little extreme. Maybe not the craps table, but you get my drift anyway.
Yeah, and it's not really it's not a non-negotiable to me to say to have multiple exit strategies for the property. This is not a non-negotiable, but I'll tell you, our investing model, which I think is one of the reasons like we've been able to sustain our business model and thrive through multiple different market cycles over the last decade, is that we target properties where we specifically have multiple exit strategies or income streams, however you want to say it, where 80% of the deals that we do, we have at least 4 ways to make money on them at least, which is we can flip them, we can rent, we can do owner financing, or we can just wholesale them for quick cash. And that is our business model, and that is our focus. So most of the deals that our investors are lending on, if I died or I'm Bernie Madoff or whatever, then if they have to take a property back, well, even if I die, they still wouldn't have to, but that's another subject. But the types of properties that we invest in, like they they have some flexibility with them, meaning like our houses on average are $150,000 investment. We invest in housing that the workforce of America buys, right? Like median income housing, and slightly below that is really what we like. We like the dinosaurs, the 1,500 322s that we're getting for $100,000 that are hard to find these days, because you have a lot of options with them. And so that gives lenders flexibility, as opposed to you're investing in some speculative $1 million, high end home, where when the market tanks or just stagnates for a while, like you're stuck like Chuck, especially like in Houston with oil and gas being like it is. Like, it's really hard to move a lot of these high end homes. It just is. And we do some of that investing, especially after Harvey, but only to a certain extent. We actually use equity participation mortgages to essentially partner with our lenders on those. But that's a whole nother topic.
I'll definitely get you on the show, and we'll talk equity participation at a future date, because that is definitely a topic that I think deserves its own show. So no, I like the like I said, the multiple streams, multiple exit strategies, and I think as a lender, it's wise to look at that as well. Not only what the investor is going to do, but as a lender, if you have to take it back, what would I do with it? What would I try to just sell it quickly? Rent it out myself, or perhaps own or finance it. And the other thing I like to see is when an investor comes with, A, B, C, and D. This is the order of the exit strategy. If A doesn't work, we'll go to B. I question it sometimes, because, okay, great. Well, we'll just go get a bank to finance you out. All right. You already have a bank that's willing to do that right now. Mm-hmm. Do you have the relationships established? And I've found that by only lending to people who do have, I'm saying that's not a guarantee, because the bank's going to want to do everything, but I can pick up the phone and call a private or a mortgage bank or a banker from an investor. And I'll give you a prime example, Chris Funk. I've loaned to him, and the whole thing was, look, we're going to do 6 months, and then I'm going to refi you out. I'm like, great, you got a great reputation, but how do I know you can refi me out at 6 months? And so I called the banker, and he's like, yeah, no, we're good. He's like, we don't, the bank won't allow to loan money to acquire that property because it's in too bad a condition. But once it's fixed up, the bank will loan at 80% all day long. So I was like, okay, fine. So it helps to show some forethought on the side of the investor, and it also is just part of my due diligence as a lender. And and this is some like yourself or Chris, years of experience. And I always tell people, like, their uncle wants to flip a house. I'm like, great, I can give you a couple of hard money lenders that'll really walk them through it. And we know who they are, but there's some really good ones out there. Yeah, they're expensive, but they're expensive for a reason. And as a private lender, again, you want to stay away from speculation, and keep it into the investing realm. So I like that. And those are the four exit strategies that I tend to look for. And if anything gets any more creative than that, I get a little skeptical on what that person's doing. So anyway, so you any other non-negotiables? We can hold them back for another time, or if you want to throw out another little nugget, feel free.
Some things that for people to consider and make their own decisions. It's one quick thing kind of tying into all that. It's like, if you're going to do an investment, think about the property in that light, where if I had to take this back, am I going to be excited to own this property and to handle the mess that may have been left, or just take over the property? Meaning, you're excited with the equity, you're excited about the type of property it is, and things like that. There's some good vibes with the deal and the property and the numbers. So be excited about it. So that's one thing. Another thing that comes to mind is about, I get this a lot about, should I loan to friends and family members? Because that's where a lot of this, when people start, that's where they go. They talk to friends or family members. And a lot of people say, absolutely, like, no, period. Like, you shouldn't loan to friends or family members. And that they make that a non-negotiable. I don't see it that way. So I had a cousin, like a distant cousin, that invested with me in the very beginning, and so that was cool, and everything worked out great. So she partnered with me, so that was great. So I don't really see it that way. A kind of a calculation you can work through in your mind is like, if I were to loan to this person, if you're considering it, and something went wrong and I had to foreclose on this person, would the relationship be damaged forever? That's what a lot of people say. And then that's kind of like, if it's going to ruin the relationship forever, if something goes wrong, then you probably shouldn't do it. And then I'll say, well, it kind of depends. Like, are you okay losing that relationship? And people are like, maybe I am. So it's like, you make your decision. But, you see a lot of, like, I don't like throwing a blanket answer on that, because you see a lot of like family companies that have like been, incredibly successful. So there's exceptions to every rule. Look at your family member, like what is their track record? What is their experience? And really like make a good business decision on that. So I don't know if you throw a blanket, answer over that right away. And I don't know, man, I can go on and on, so you got to tell me.
Okay. Well, to touch on that blanket statement, I do throw blanket statements out there, and it's not mine. It came from Quest IRA, but it's, never lend to somebody you're not going to be comfortable foreclosing on.
Yeah.
So like you said, if that relationship goes to pot and you're okay with it and you got to foreclose on them, fine. But if it's going to make Thanksgiving really awkward, and to touch on your old profession, if the law has to get called because, two cousins gotten involved in a bad deal, maybe you shouldn't loan to them or do the deal with them. And like you said, that's a personal decision. Yeah. But for me, it's a non-negotiable or a pillar in lending for me is, don't lend on to somebody that you're not comfortable foreclosing on. So if, my sister, for example, I would never loan to her because it's going to make Thanksgiving really weird, and it's or Easter or whatever. So it's, I agree. Like it's there's not a blanket statement, but to me it is a blanket. Like, no, this is non-negotiable. You have to decide this right up. That's part of your due diligence. And that's a part of the beauty of. I mean, the people I loan to, I do consider them friends, but a lot of them I've met through real estate first and became friends. Yeah. So, but they know the game. And there's more than just foreclosure. There's deed in lieu and all these other things and other exit strategies, contingencies. But
it's just it's a depends thing on it for everybody, and depending on their personality. Like I have, I've hired family members. Like I have one of my family members works for me right now, and that's similar to that. I've got to keep, we have had to have conversations, before I hired her, and I have to treat her like everybody else, and whenever there's discipline that needs to take place, like I have to do that. And that's the thing is, like, if you loan to a friend or family member, if it's going to make holidays and things like that awkward if something goes bad, but also you got to ask yourself, if something like goes bad, are you going to be able to really still act and think like a business person? Because like one of the things that you should always do as a lender is, if a borrower fails to perform, meaning they don't make a payment, it's really important that you take immediate action. And so I could see people that if they loan to a friend or family member and someone has some issues, they might give them a little bit of time and not really treat them like a bank would treat a lender, right? Well, that's probably a bad example because banks let people get away with crime these days. But just ask yourself, are you going to be able to take immediate action if this loan goes, if they default, if they don't perform? And if you can, then great, go for it. But if not, don't really sweat it, because there's more deals available there's so many deals available for lenders, and there's so many lenders available for borrowers. So to me, it's like, you really there's a bigger pool to go fishing in than just with friends and family members, quite honestly.
Absolutely. And why, if it's not a friend or a family member, if they come to me with puppy dog eyes and say, come on, man, sorry, we have an agreement, and at that point I'm Wells Fargo, I'm Bank of America, like this is how it is. This is the risk that I took, and this is the risk that, and I'm going to follow through, and you give me the house back right now, or, we can go through the foreclosure process and it'll cost you more, whatever. So, that's a good point. So tell us a little more about this, the book. What's the title of your book that's going to be coming out soon?
So it's called the Private Lender Playbook. And, so it is an A to Z for the most part, step-by-step overview. It's gonna be really great for people, especially for newbies, someone who's never done this before, and people maybe they've done a few deals, but they don't really fully understand what it is that they're investing in, or what to do if something goes wrong, or how to structure things, and how to even analyze a deal, or how to analyze a borrower. Why it's so important to close at a title company, and the different types of insurance, and just kind of it walks them through the entire process. And then I mentioned Nathan Long before we started the call. At least I mentioned Nathan Long's contributing a few chapters about using your self-directed IRA to become a lender, because majority, I don't have an exact percentage, but a majority of our investors are, they're investing from their IRA, and more so than cash. So that's really important. So we added some chapters to that in the book. Just different things, like showing them how the process works, how to determine rates and fees, and long-term versus short-term. We get into a little conversation about the tortoise and the hare in the book, that's pretty powerful actually. So that's what it's all about. And touch on foreclosure a little bit, just a little bit of everything to give them a basic, broad view understanding of this whole business. Cause I've just seen that where a lot of lenders don't really understand the business, even in what they're investing in. So this makes them much, much more equipped to make wise decisions,
Excellent. And how, I know it's not out yet, so how can people find out about this book when it comes out? Where can they go? What's your website?
The best thing is just go to my website, which is brantphillips.com. Brantphillips.com. If they're signed up to our email list, they're going to get notified whenever the book comes out. And we're penciling in a June 1st release for the book.
Okay. So Brant, and this information will be on the show notes page. So if you're driving in your car and listening, don't worry. Just go to the Brant Phillips show notes page, and you can go to find his website there. And also more information. Brant holds a massive REI or RIA meeting, a meetup group, once a month. So tell us a little bit about that. You've been a little too modest. I want the listeners to hear about that.
All right. So so the first Wednesday of every month, we have a meetup here in the Houston area. And it's called, you can go to reaction.com. It's reaction with an I in there. It's reiaction.com for real estate investing action.com. And that's the first Wednesday of every month. This month, I'm really excited. We've got Steve Davis, formerly of Lifestyles Unlimited, coming out to speak. So Steve was like one of my first mentors when I got started 10 or 11 years ago. And so I'm really excited to have him come out. He's just a great guy. And not only is he a great guy, he's been an incredible investor since he started. I think when he was in his late 20s, he's owned thousands and thousands of doors through apartments. I don't know how many single family homes he's owned, but he's a great guy, local guy to our area. And he's going to come out and share. About, essentially his talk is about from middle class to millionaire, and just kind of some of the mind shift changes and shifts that need to take place in order to get out of the middle class and into like the millionaire kind of abundance lifestyle mentality.
Yeah. I signed up as soon as I heard he was going to be there. So
but yeah, it's pretty cool. We, Hunter, you heard he's coming?
Yeah. As soon as I heard he was coming, I signed up. I was like, I'll be there.
Yeah, it's going to be a great event. We try to make every month a great event. We have fun. We keep it loose. We keep it real, and we keep it like action focused. Like it's not a bunch of like sales pitchy BS kind of stuff that you see with a lot of these groups. We keep it real. We keep it raw, like trying to get a focus on helping people create results, take action. And we have fun with it too. It's at like this modern day honky tonk place, and we've got, we have food, and we have drinks, and we network and, have drinks and hang out and talk. And that's it, man. It's like the monthly networking thing to me is like, it's critical for entrepreneurs, because if you're on an island as an entrepreneur, and even as a lender, maybe things don't go your way, or you're not getting good deal flow one month, or a deal goes bad or whatever. When I first started investing, I was incredibly active at networking, because I found that going and getting plugged in every month around, my peers and other people in the business I would get like a little nitrous oxide shot, like a little turbo boost some months, because some months it was hard. It was a grind and I'd be down. But I talked to a buddy of mine who, like hit on some good deals or whatever, gave me a little marketing tip, and said be a little boost in my engine, man. I go out and get to work. And then some months I'd be coming in like, and I'm on cloud 9 because I was just like crushing it. And then my buddy's like a little bit down because whatever problem he was dealing with, because we're always dealing with problems. But, I maybe give him a little boost because something's going good in my business. And then it's the energy. So we try to create really good energy there to motivate people. Like one of my, my personal mission statements is like to motivate, educate, inspire, and equip people to take action, right? And lead by example. So that's what we try to do there. That's it.
It's a great meetup, and it is at a honky tonk. So if you catch us there, I will make sure Brant gets on the mechanical bull before the night's over. So
let's see. We'll wait and see about that. I have rode the bull, but we'll. I don't do it every month. Only special occasions.
We'll wait until they close the bar, and then we'll do it. But,
it's there and ready.
Well, Brant, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your time with us today. It is your most valuable asset with Lender Nation. And again, I'll definitely want to have you on again in the future. And I wish you prosperous investing and all the best.
Thanks, man. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Take care. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. I want to thank Brant for coming on and giving a great interview. And I would like to invite you to learn more about Brant. Just go to brantphillips.com, or you can also go to his meetup webpage. It's reiaction.com, and be on the lookout for his book, The Private Lender Playbook, if you want to learn more. Also, please visit privatelenderpodcast.com/sponsors and click on 713 Houston Area Real Estate Networking to learn more about them. Also, there is a 25% off discount when you purchase your Quest IRA Expo tickets through the website. Click on the link. The expo is August 25th and 26th in Dallas, and I will see you there. Also, the Rich Club, Realty Investment Community of Houston, and then the Texas100.org that I spoke of earlier. So I hope everyone is doing well. I hope the late spring, early summer, at least for us down here in Texas, hope it's going well for everybody. And if you have any questions, please just shoot an email to info@privatelenderpodcast.com, and I will catch you on the next episode.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Private Lender Podcast with your host, Keith Baker. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit privatelenderpodcast.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time.